everyone. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world. Today, we are going to have a very thought-provoking and interesting discussions with Dr. Mirka Wilderer. And Mirka has over 15 years of water industry experience in numerous countries on 4 different continents and has been living in the United States since 2009. That is just a brief introduction about her. As we get started on the session, this session is about highlighting women who are at the forefront of leading roles, and the world being in the challenging situation right now. All of this leadership work becomes more challenging for any leader. So I am going to share with you a brief presentation. Leadership Excellence Framework is based on a concept which was evolved around 2014, 2015, when I was actually studying the leadership theories as part of my doctoral program. And I studied one theory after another, and I could not figure out why these theories are not based on women leadership. All of those theories were based on men as leaders. Nothing against that. But as in my perception, women have been the glue of this world, the global world, keeping it together since the beginning of times, no matter what role they play in. That put me on a pursuit to understand what does it mean when we talk about leadership in women. So the concept is that we recognize women like Mirka herself, who are taking their place as leaders and have been doing it. The knowledge about them will help us and all of our audience to thrive in their respective leadership roles, both women and men. So what are the inherent leadership strengths of women? When we identify and build them, it will help us in overcoming obstacles and reaching your goals. The key strengths are emotional intelligence, the grit, because no matter how odd the circumstances are, how challenging they are, women use grit throughout their existence and their growth, and they help others grow in that regard. So grit, the emotional intelligence of understanding what other person, team member, family member are doing and how they can help support them through their emotion, and then responding to it, not only in authentic, emotional, but intelligent way. And then the inherent empathy of women. As a human being, I will say both men and women have all these characteristics, but the empathy is highest on the radar of women. When they operate from the true empathy from their heart. So our today's guest, now we are going to go and have a detailed discussion with her. Mirka is a CEO of Denora Water Technologies. She is the first female chief executive officer appointed in 2019. I am going to stop sharing my screen and I am inviting Mirka to be on stage with me. Mirka, welcome to the conversation. Go ahead and tell us who you are.
Thank you very much. All right, so my name is Mirka Wilderer. I am originally German and Czech citizen, and actually completed my studies in Germany while then traveling the world on various jobs and functions. And originally my goal was to join the UN and help to save the world that way. I had the opportunity to have incredible, fascinating internship with the UN in Geneva. Loved every part of it. But then I got the recommendation that you shouldn't start there. It's a very difficult start, not a lot of talent development. Why don't you go start with the corporation? You learn the same skill sets, and then you can cross over. So I joined the water business. I always joke I'm probably the only non-engineer in the water space. And I have been in the water space ever since. And it's fascinating to me, the potential and the opportunity from a corporation perspective to still help to save the world. In our case, we are dedicated to water treatment. Water is one of the precious resources that we have on our planet. All life depends on water. And so helping to provide the technologies to treat water, whether it is filtration or disinfection, to make it safe for human consumption, but also safe for industrial uses, it is something that really touches me in my purpose to securing a future for future generations.
Let us help in understanding also where you are in water industry and what does it mean.
Yes. So Denora Water Technologies, we are an Italian-owned, family-owned business, but we truly have a global footprint. Only about 2% of our revenue is generated in Italy. What's really unique about my company, I would say, is that we are around the world with leaders around the world. And if there is any silver lining of the pandemic, it has introduced more of these tools that we're using today to help us communicate and collaborate on a global platform much more frequent than what we would traditionally do based on travel restrictions.
Are there more women leaders in this industry? How does that go?
So the water industry is a very traditional industry. The major agency in our market that produces market intelligence is called Global Water Intelligence. They, every 2 years, identify the top 20 most powerful women in the industry. I've been on that list now a few times. Originally, when I was put on there, it was 19 ladies from, I would say, very political background, the Minister of Environment from certain countries. And then it was me, and the note underneath my name was the only female CEO of a water technology company. They republished this study this year. I'm glad to see more ladies from an industrial background. There's a number of large corporations, especially in France, that now have female CEOs that provide utility services, but it still says underneath my name, only female CEO of a technology provider. So unfortunately, we're making very slow progress.
I published an article on LinkedIn that it will take close to 222 years for architecture to equalize the map of leadership. So Mirka, tell me how your grit and emotional intelligence have helped you in getting where you are.
Yes, I would especially emphasize the grit. I think there's been multiple steps along my career where it was very challenging, and it was questioning some of my core fundamental beliefs, and it was frustrating, right? And so having the grit, the passion, and the perseverance to ensure that I stick to it and not give up, not let someone put me down, not let someone push me aside, but making sure that I fight for the performance I want to deliver, but also fight for the recognition that goes along with delivering the performance.
Is there any specific example which comes to your mind, which happened in your life based on grit and everything else?
I was still with Siemens earlier in my career, and I was constantly competing against my male colleagues. Right, it was always the only female in the room, which is fine. I don't know any other, so it's the context that we operate under. So I was in a particular role, and I was doing a really good job and got positive feedback from my supervisor on my accomplishments. And then promotion came along, and my colleague got it. All right, I'll try harder. Right, I'm a very ambitious person, and I'm just going to take that as I'm gonna win the next one. And then the next one passed by. And so then I called my boss out on it and said, what is going on here? I'm getting this wonderful feedback about my performance, and yet I'm not being considered for promotions. And the comment that I heard back was, Mirka, I think you should be very grateful because on the age gender index, you're doing really well. I'm like, oh, I did not know that there is an age gender index, and what other females are on there that you're comparing me to, but there is no other. And so anyhow, I called it out. That doesn't make you friends, right? That doesn't make you popular to make your stand. And ultimately, it just led to a realization for myself that there's a barrier, and if I want to advance, it might not be here. It might be somewhere else. At the water business I was at, I was able to take on first bigger leadership roles, but then equally, right, there's glass ceilings that we reach that we can't circumvent, but then there's someone that gives you a chance. Denora gave me the chance to become the first female CEO, which was a big leap of faith on their part, but certainly also comes with the grit and the need to demonstrate that they made the right choice.
So I think your grit, your empathy, and your intelligence, all three are playing a key role in that regard. And I am sure at this point you are a mentor to a lot of people. But what kind of a role mentoring has played in your life?
I've had the honor and opportunity to have several mentors in my life. Some came to me through programs that I was part of. I mentioned talent development programs earlier, early in my career and throughout my career. I would say then there's also been informal mentors that I was exposed to. And some of them are peers. Some of them are even the next generation reverse mentoring, right? I learned so much from the next generation. I wish, as you said, I wish I knew that earlier. And I think, what is mentoring? Mentoring is opening yourselves up to the experience of others. That doesn't mean advice giving necessarily. It just means listening to the stories and seeing if there is something available for me. Do I need to have every experience myself? Or is there ways to discussing situations and reflecting it on the experience of others? So I think empathy is equally important. My understanding for a leader is not that I'm the super expert. I see that a lot of my colleagues came through the ranks and they were the expert, and then they were promoted, and then they become a bigger expert, and at some point they're a super expert. I don't even have a technical background, so I've never been in the position to say, well, I'll have the best technical knowledge to help you solve. And I don't view this as my role as a leader. I know who the technical experts are. I know who to tap into for the right problem to find a creative solution. So my role as the leader is not to be the best technical expert. My role as a leader is to understand the talent landscape that I have and tap into each talent to come forward with the right solutions to whatever the situation requires.
That is a great piece of advice for those of you who are listening to us, that having a knowledge or a degree of one profession and focusing on, for example, in my case, how you will do great design and will do great drawings on it, will not help you in moving up, in having a vertical development. You have to work around the context also and step back and look at the larger picture, and then figure out if this is not working, how you can make it work. So you have utilized your intelligence very well. Based on that, mentoring, what are the global challenges and what are our opportunities?
Talking about the water space, we're facing some true challenges around our water systems and water resources. If we continue to ask the same stereotype of person, we will get the same stereotype of answers. Where should difference come from? We've been so focused on executing the playbook that the playbook is pretty standardized. So in my world, what I'm saying, if we want different answers, we need to ask different people. And we need to expect that the answers will be different. And so that's right. I'm a huge champion for diversity, equity, inclusion. It will drive innovation. We will not get different answers if we ask the same type of people. So we need to bring in a mix, different perspectives. Now, the challenge is if you're the person with the different perspective, you now naturally, because you can't help yourself, because from your background, you just don't have mainstream in you. And I've lived it many times. Now you're in the room, you're making a different suggestion. People, have all kinds of reactions. Like, well, that's not how we do it here. We've never done that. Well, that's why we want to change it, right? So I think we have to be very conscious of what we're putting on as expectations on the diverse members of the team. And but again, diversity with a very broad definition of diversity. But I think we need to make sure that we, bring in new generation, bring in people from different walks of life, from different belief systems, from different educational backgrounds, and have them challenge our thinking. Diversity, equity, inclusion is really fundamental for us in tackling some of those really complex challenges that we have ahead of us.
Thank you for bringing that up, because these days, in last 5-10 years, we have been talking about diversity a lot, and we understand diversity in a very superficial way: diversity of appearance, diversity of skin colors, or mixing different people. But not only having that, but having the diversity of ideas and diversity of thoughts through that groups, which represent true diversity, it leads to more innovation, more creation, and advancement of this world. Moving forward with what we know, and we talked about global challenges and opportunities, what role a women leadership can play?
I want to tap into all available leaders, and I'm looking and trying to groom the next generation of female leaders, because I do think we need these out of the box ideas. We need these new ways of looking, the new perspectives of looking at our challenges. So even in a very conservative technical industry as mine, we need that extra voice, that extra perspective. And so I think, the role women will play is to help shake up and wake up that industry.
Well said. With all of this discussed, what is your advice to women in your industry?
If you stay within your comfort zone, you don't grow, build that grit that you talked about, right? Going outside your comfort zone and grow with that. But I would also say build your tribe. It's exhausting to be always the different one, the colorful unicorn among the gray suits. So you can be outside your comfort zone, but you also need to have a tribe where you fall back into and say, here I can be authentic, and I'm experience sharing. But I would also say, from my perspective, don't become the best man in the room, become the best woman. Really harvest your difference. There's such a beauty and wealth in the different experience that we want to nurture that and not try to become what we're not and will never be.
Such a great piece of advice. Really harvest your difference and cultivate whom you are rather than becoming someone else. That's great. And I think that's where the leadership in women will go, with leaders like yourself and the experiences which we have. Many of them are universal, and there is a silver lining in this universality, in what we have common in each other, and how we can support and move forward, and how we can harvest our differences and keep developing our strengths. Thank you, Mirka, for being here and sharing with us your leadership journey in a very candid way.